Hello everybody, my name is Michael Wagner. I teach at the Westphal College of Media Arts and Design at Drexel University in Philadelphia. And on this channel I talk about digital media, game design and spatial audio. Now the video today is a follow-up on a video that I did previously on how to get started with Dolby Atmos music in Nuendo. And some of you have pointed out that you can also do Dolby Atmos music with Fairlight, which is the audio part of DaVinci Resolve. And some have asked if we could have a look into that, and that's what I want to do today. Now, before I get started, there are a couple of things I need to point out. First of all, I'm not an expert in DaVinci Resolve. DaVinci Resolve is an incredibly powerful piece of software that has many different aspects and many different features. I do use it for editing my videos, but I try to keep the editing of my videos as simple as possible for reasons that I might explain in a different video. So I'm not really familiar with all the ins and outs of that piece of software. So if you are a professional in DaVinci Resolve out there and you see that and you find certain things funny the way I do that, please let me know. I'm always eager to learn. The second thing I need to point out is that in the videos that I did before, I said that DaVinci Resolve is free, and that's the way we usually look at it, and that you can use Dolby Atmos in a free piece of software. This unfortunately is not completely correct. The Dolby Atmos part of DaVinci Resolve is part of the paid version of DaVinci Resolve, so you cannot really do the things that we're going to do today with the free version. You need the paid version. However, the paid version is something that comes with the DaVinci Resolve Speed Editor, the Blackmagic Speed Editor, which is an incredibly nice controller. So if you have anything, if you have any work that you need to do in terms of video editing, I highly recommend getting that controller. I used a lot of different controllers in the past, and this was actually really the first one that I found comfortable to use and that I use almost daily. And if you buy that controller, which is $299 US, then you essentially get the studio version of DaVinci Resolve along with it. Or you could also say that if you buy DaVinci Resolve Studio, which is also $299 US, you get the speed editor for free. So the final part I need to point out is that DaVinci Resolve is a video editing software, and Fairlight, as part of this video editing software, follows a video editing workflow. So the workflow that you will use in Fairlight is slightly different to the workflows that you normally have in a digital audio workstation. And one thing in particular is that in DaVinci Resolve, we do not have MIDI support. So if you want to use Fairlight as your main DAW, which some people I know do, then you have to find a solution how to work with MIDI. Now, if you search on the internet, you will find that people are using VST plugins to bring in MIDI functionality into DaVinci Resolve Studio, but my recommendation would be to have a secondary DAW where you do all your music production, and once you have the basic mixing done, you bring in the individual stems or tracks into DaVinci Resolve, into the Fairlight page, and then do the final Dolby Atmos panning and rendering within Fairlight. And that's usually the better way to go. So with that out of the way, let's get right into it. Now, I've already started up an empty DaVinci Resolve project. I loaded up two audio clips. One is going to serve as the Dolby Atmos bed, and the other one is going to serve as an object that we're going to move around. The Dolby Atmos bed is actually a track of mine that I just published a couple of days ago in a YouTube short. It's about a minute long. Unfortunately, I really don't have enough time to do longer tracks anymore. But it's sort of a little piece that I'm going to use. I'm not assuming that this is of professional quality. So I'm not a professional music producer. I'm more of a technical person. So, but I think it works. So let's have a brief listen to how that sounds. And actually, let me take my headphones. So that is the track. In case you're wondering, Gerhard is my middle name, and when I do things for fun, I like to publish that under my pen name, Mike Gerhard, so that people understand what is my fun stuff that doesn't have any kind of assumption that it's of professional quality, and what do I do for at a professional level. So if you see something with Mike Gerhard, then kind of it's something I did for fun. And the draw drone or this audio effect that we're going to use as a bed comes from the Sonis Game Developer Conference bundle that they put out for the 2020 Game Developers Conference. Now, if you're following my game audio videos, then you are familiar with that. That's essentially also the bundle that we use there. For those that have not seen that video yet, just a brief background. Sonis is a company that distributes sound effects, and every year during the Game Developers Conference they put out a bundle where they make a selection of their sound effects available to everybody, and you can download that for free and use that. And that's what we're going to use here. So if you want to use exactly the same sounds, just go to the link that I'm going to put into the description below and download that. But once again, it doesn't really make any difference. We're just going to use two sounds here, that's or two audio sources here, and that's all what we're going to do. So how do we go about that? Well, first of all, let's move right into the Fairlight page, which this once again is the audio production part of DaVinci Resolve, and we're going to spend most of our time in this page. You could also do certain things in the edit page, not so much in the cut page, quite frankly, but most of the things that we are going to do, and I think there's probably not a single reason why you actually have to leave the Fairlight page. So we're going to spend our time in here. A couple of things that we need to prepare. The first thing that we need to prepare is we need to go into the file, into the project settings, and in the project settings we need to enable Dolby Atmos. It's not enabled by default, so in order to make the menus and everything not as convoluted as it would be if you would enable all options that DaVinci Resolve had. So we need to manually enable that. So let's go into the Fairlight settings, and under Fairlight settings, if you have the studio version, and that's once again, that is the main difference here, you have a couple of different immersive audio options, and what we want to do is we want to enable Dolby Atmos, and this essentially makes sure that DaVinci Resolve understands we are now doing something with Dolby Atmos, and we're going to save that. Now, if you have different monitoring setups, let's say, for example, you have a 5.1 or 7.1 system that you also use for monitoring, and DaVinci Resolve has something that is similar to the control room setup in Nuendo. Actually, it's also called control room. So you could also set that up, and in order to do that, you would go into DaVinci Resolve, into the preferences, and under video and audio I/O, under speaker setup, you could go into manual and then essentially change different settings. You can kind of have multiple output settings, multiple monitor settings, and do it that way. If you have an external Dolby Atmos renderer, you would also enable the external renderer here. That's not what we're going to have. Now for us, we are just going to go with the system settings. So that is perfectly fine for us. I'm only having my headphones. That's all I have. So this will be perfectly fine for me. So now with that out of the way, we need to start everything. And since this is a video editing software, the first thing we need to do is we need to add a timeline. So let's go into right click on the on that window and say create new timeline. And once we have created the new timeline, an empty audio track is going to pop up. And that empty audio track is going to serve as the, where we're going to put in the track that's going to serve as the Dolby Atmos bed. We also have a bus, which is our main bus, really. Everything that we route into the main bus is currently routed into the stereo out. So if we take the clip and drop that in here, and let me just open that up a little so that we can see the waveform. Then this is routed from audio 1 into the bus, and the bus then routed into the stereo out. So everything's working fine. By the way, if you have the speed editor also works on the Fairlight page. So I can use the jog wheel to kind of move around, and that's actually fairly convenient. Now I'm not completely sure which parts of the speed editor work on the Fairlight page. I haven't looked at that yet, but at least the jog wheel, and that's a nice thing. One more thing, we want to have an object, and for the object we're using the haunted drone here. Now there are many ways how we can go about creating an additional audio track. We could simply say add track, right click and add track, but what we're going to do is we're simply going to drop that in here, and that's going to add a second audio track, and this second audio track is holding the drone. Now currently they're playing both together, which sounds awful. And let me just turn down the music a little. Now we're going to automate the audio part a little bit, just to get some sense on how automation works later on. But first, let's set up the Dolby Atmos renderer, and let's set up all the routing in the Dolby Atmos renderer. Now, the first thing we need to do is the first audio track is going to be the bed, and the bed is supposed to be a 7.1.2. Now we could keep it a stereo track, but let's turn that into a 7.1.2. And the way we're going to do that is by turning the bus that it is routed into a 7.1.2 bus, and that 7.1.2 bus 1, will then not be routed into stereo out, but will actually instead be routed into the Dolby Atmos renderer. Now, in order to do that, we are going to go to the Fairlight menu, and in the Fairlight menu, we're actually going to spend a fair amount of time in that menu. We can change the format of the individual buses. So let's click on the bus format, and in the bus format, it's currently stereo. So let's change that to 7.1.2. And once again, these options are only available to you if you enable Dolby Atmos in the project settings. So if you don't enable those, you won't see that. So let's click that here. So that now has changed 10 channels. And as soon as we did that, we also noticed that the panning, and by the way, if your panning is not visible in your case, please click on the 3 dots here and enable the panning. I think it's not set up by default, but the panner is now a full 3-dimensional panner. So if I'm clicking on the double clicking on the panner, I'm essentially getting a 3-dimensional view of the object. So the green spheres indicate the 2 speaker positions of the stereo object. This is a stereo track positioned in 3-dimensional space. And I can certainly, and let me just mute the second one so that they get a better sense. And we can certainly move the object around. But let's just leave it the way it was, and essentially kind of just automate the object. So the second thing is we need to make sure that the routing is correct. Now, the way we're going to do that is we're going to route the bus into the Dolby Atmos renderer as the bed. Currently, the second channel or the second track, the audio 2, is also routed into the same bus. So if we would do that, we would route both audio tracks into the into the Dolby Atmos bed. Now we don't want to do that. So the first thing we need to make sure is that the routing, the connection between the tracks and the buses that we're using is correct. In particular, we want to disconnect the second audio track from that bus, because once again, that bus is supposed to be the Dolby Atmos bed, and this second audio track is supposed to become the one of the Dolby Atmos objects. So the assignments, the bus assignments are managed through the menu item bus assign, and that is actually one of the things which is a little the user. Let's put it that way. The user interface could use some improvements. The way to think about it is a little bit like if you would patch hardware, right? So the available tracks are audio 1 and audio 2, and we see the destinations here, and that is sort of the output of bus 1. And we want to keep the audio track 1 routed to bus 1, but we want to disconnect the audio 2, because that's going to be routed directly into the Dolby Atmos renderer as a Dolby Atmos object. So what we need to do is we need to click on the bus 1 out, and then we can deselect the audio 2, and now it is disconnected. So currently only audio 1 is routed into the bus. The bus is the only thing that's routed currently into the stereo out. So if we leave it like that, I'm going to, and let me just make that unmute that again. I'm still not going to hear audio 2 because audio 2 currently is not routed anywhere. So it's going to show a signal here, but essentially the signal isn't really going anywhere because it's not routed into the bus that is currently routed into the stereo out. So now we have prepared everything. So the final thing we need to do is we need to connect these 2 tracks, the bed and the object, to the Dolby Atmos renderer. And the way to do that in Fairlight is by going to the patch input output. And that's really like a patch bay. So we are really patching one thing to the other. That's the way to think about it. So we open that up. And what we want to do is we want to first take the bus outs, which are the 10 channels that come out of bus 1. And we want to route that into the Dolby Atmos renderer. So as a destination, we're going to select the Dolby Atmos send, and that will open up all the individual channels that I have in the Dolby Atmos environment. And if you remember, those are 128 in total, and the first 10 I used for the bed, and from 11 on, essentially they are used as objects. So what we want to do is we want to patch these 10 channels to the 10 channels of the Dolby Atmos renderer. And, kind of we could select one here and then essentially patch. Or we can also simply select all of them at once and then patch them to the corresponding bed channels in the Dolby Atmos renderer. So now we have the bed connected to the Dolby Atmos renderer, and if I am playing the sound, I'm essentially now hearing that through the Dolby Atmos renderer. So next thing we need to do is we need to patch the audio 2 into an object, and for that, once again, we're going to go back to the patch input output, and we want to do is we want to take the track direct and we want to patch that into the Dolby Atmos send. And the two channels we want to patch are the left and right channel of the second audio track. So let's say the left channel goes to send 11 and the right channel goes to send 12, which are the first two objects in the Dolby Atmos renderer. Let's patch those. And as soon as I patched those, I should hear both the bed as well as the object. Right? So you hear the drone in the background. Now we can now go back to the panning function. So this is the panner that we used for the drone. Right, so let's make that a mono source. We can essentially move that around. So now you essentially can use different objects. You can route them into the Dolby Atmos renderer and automate panning. Now, how do we go about automation? Let's just briefly look into how automation works. Let me just reset that here. And the way automation works in Fairlight is you first have to enable the automation, essentially what you want to automate. So let's click on the automation button here, and that opens up the automation options here. And we want to automate the panning function. Then let's go into the audio. We want to automate the panner in the second audio track. So in the panning function, let's say we just want to automate left-right and just move the object from left to right. And then let's enable the automation in that lane. And then finally, let's change the tool so that we can actually draw some enemy automation. And let's say we want to maybe draw from, oops, so I'm just doing something, I don't know, right? And then let's go to preview so that we actually hear what we're doing. And let's see if I'm actually, let me mute the, right. So I'm now having the automation in of this object. And obviously I can automate all parameters here. That's essentially how automation works. Let's unmute the audio track again. Once again, this is just an example, so probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it's sort of a drone that is moving around. And that is really it. The last thing we need to talk about is what do I do if I want to actually save that or output that. Now, there are two different ways. Obviously, if you would do that as part of a video production, you would go into the deliver page and you would render it. But because we are only doing Dolby Atmos music, actually all we really want is the Dolby Atmos part of it. And we can simply get that by going into Fairlight into the immersive audio. We can simply say export the master file. and then that will then allow me to export that file. I have different options. Dolby Atmos has actually different types of formats, but the common one is the ADM BWF. That's the one we used last time. I can give it a name and then simply export it, and that would export the whole thing as a Dolby Atmos file. And one final thing, if you also go into Fairlight, into the immersive audio part, there is a space view scope, and that space view scope will give you a full view of all the objects that you have in the Dolby Atmos file. Now, if you remember, in the Dolby Atmos renderer that came with Nuendo, which is essentially the standard Dolby Atmos renderer, we had this top-down view where we could see the objects move around. In the way we patched the individual tracks to the individual sends of the Dolby Atmos renderer in DaVinci Resolve, we didn't really see that there, but we can open up the space view, and that will allow us to see how these sounds move around in three-dimensional space. And we can also see how they play and everything. So we currently see, for example, that this left and right channel here are essentially zoomed together, so it's one. And that is really everything I wanted to say. So as you see, this is actually fairly convenient. I invite everybody to check out how that works. Once again, you need the studio version of DaVinci Resolve in order to be able to do that. But I think it's a good investment, honestly. So especially if you're doing any video editing work, and especially if you go with the speed editor. Other than that, if you have any questions, if there's anything you want me to look into more detail, let me know in the comments. I'm probably going to do a Q&A very soon, because there are a couple of things I want to answer that were in some of the previous comments that I found interesting. But in any way, leave your comments. If you like the video, please press the like button. Apparently that's important. Subscribe to this channel. Other than that, see you at the next video.